Hello everybody, welcome to today's video, and the picture on screen now is the inspiration. This came from a Facebook reel, so this had the added layer of difficulty of not being able to actually follow along and copy to a degree what the inspiration person is doing. You only see little snapshots, so I had to figure a lot of it out for myself, and I'm not kidding when I say I did a good job, so please stay tuned. I will give a very detailed tutorial on how I did this. Because it's a Facebook reel, I can't credit the creator. If you are watching this and you recognise yourself as being the creator of this and you have a YouTube channel, please let me know so that I can link your channel in the comments. Not only so I can give you credit, but because I want to follow you as well. Okay, so to catch you up on what I've done so far, I am using 0.5mm wire, and literally all I've done so far is hand shape a petal to what I think is the size and shape that I want. Then I'm stretching it back out so that I can measure it and then cut off multiple pieces of the same size. And I'm using my nylon pliers to straighten it out as best as I can. This piece measured approximately 2.5 centimetres. So I'm going to cut multiple pieces of 2.5 centimetres. I'm going to have a question for you at some point in this video, so please listen out for that. So I've made 5 petals and I'm sticking them to some jewellery tape. I haven't shown the process of making the petals, the tools and how I've shaped them, etc. But I do end up remaking these pieces later because I'm not happy with the shape and size of them. So I will show you the actual process of shaping the petals later. Again, don't worry about that. However, I have left this section of the video in for those people who would like to see how these turn out and how they compare to the new set and why the new set is better. But if you don't want to see that, then jump to the next chapter. So this is the Let's Resin set of 18 opaque pigments, and I'm using pink and white, and the UV resin is from Sheen. When you are securing your bezels to your tape, you need to do that against a hard surface. So on your silicone mat, but on your work surface. Or if you are using your jewel lamp, you'd need to do it onto the tray so that you can move it whilst keeping the pieces flat, keeping the tape flat. With this one, I am just using the small cheap lamps that come with starter kits, so I'm moving the light to the pieces. You saw me pressing them against the silicone pad, but I did them again on the desk before starting to fill them. I have filled these with 2 layers of resin. Okay, this is where the problem with the size and shape becomes apparent. I don't know why it didn't earlier. Maybe I had an inkling earlier, but I thought, nah, let's go with it. There is too much gap between the petals. So as you can see, I've made some more, and these touch each other, even though there's still only 5 petals. Now, it seems I lost a chunk of footage because I've already filled some with white. Now, don't worry, because I'm going to remake these as well. I made the mistake of not curing each petal individually, so some resin leaked up into the gaps between the petals. So for the first pieces, I used 2.5 centimetre length of wire, and I used the second smallest guide on the bail making pliers. Playing about with different lengths of wire and different settings on the pliers, I came to the decision that the best sizes that worked for me were 3 centimetres of wire and the 4th smallest, so 3rd biggest setting on the pliers. I want to show you this in detail, so I've slowed this down to half speed. Press the wire against the guide roughly in the middle. It doesn't have to be perfect until the ends are pointing towards each other. If one length is longer than the other, one side is longer than the other, you can adjust it by, once you have ran out of wire to press on one side, just carry on pressing the other side and it will be long enough to meet the shorter side. I hope that makes sense. Let me know if you have any further questions about any part of this project. So the fact that I am hoping this makes sense brings me to my question. It can be very difficult to make a video like this where there are lots of steps and you want to give a detailed tutorial whilst also being mindful of keeping the video to a reasonable length. So my idea is, and this is where I would really like to direct my channel, is for me to do jewellery making live. Some of my most successful videos have been my can I copy this, can I make this, can I emulate this style of project, where I have been making my project whilst watching a video and pausing it and re-watching to do the next step, etc. But the fact that they've been some of my most successful videos suggests to me that people appreciate me being able to make those styles of projects and showing it to my viewers in a longer tutorial style. I can appreciate it probably feels intimidating and feels out of reach, especially for beginners, to feel like they can create those gorgeous pieces without any actual instruction. So basically, I want to be able to give viewers the option to have more detailed tutorials, which is what I'm doing now. However, the reason why I'd like to do it live is because it'll feel more like being in a classroom, and if I'm not explaining myself well, people can ask me to slow down or go back and explain something again, and I will feel like I am genuinely teaching you rather than just putting a video out and hoping that you've understood me, because I can struggle to find the right words sometimes. Now, to make a project like this would take absolutely hours. It took me hours, but we could break it down into sections, and over the course of 3 or 4 lives we make a bracelet. So flowers, making the flowers is week 1, for example. And aside from anything else, I just think it would be fun and something different. So let me know what you think of the idea, please. Thank you for listening to my rambling. I really appreciate it. And back to the project, and now I am going to refine my petals a little bit better. You see that petal on the top right that I'm just picking up? This piece needs flattening because one end sticks up higher than the other. It also needs the ends pulling closer together, and it also has a little kink on the side. So there's 3 issues with this piece that I need to correct. The first issue that I'm correcting, and I'm doing this in the wrong order, but the first issue is putting the ends together. And next, in case you couldn't see it earlier, you'll hopefully see it in a moment. There's the bit of a kink on the bottom side. So I'm just going to smooth that out with the nylon pliers. And that's brought the ends back apart again, which is why I said I was doing it in the wrong order, but never mind. I've pushed them back together now. And now I need to flatten it, which, duh, you do not do it against a silicone pad. You need to do it against a hard surface. Or, as I'm about to do here, feed it through my nylon pliers. Here's another very good example of a misshaped one. Whilst you watch this, thank you so much to all of my subscribers, and if you haven't subscribed already, please consider doing so. I would be really grateful. Okay, time for a bit of a sped up section, because I think after all that wirework talk, there's not much really to discuss on the resin side, but please let me know, because if you're new to resin as well, you may need further explanation on that. But basically, the focus on this is how to make the wirework for the bracelet, and the resin is just a filling, isn't it? So I'm using the UV bonding kit from Let's Resin just to stick the inners of the petals together. When I demolded my first white ones, which I didn't get the footage for, when I came to take them off the tape, some of the petals, which hadn't been joined together by an overpour as well, broke away. So the bonding kit dot in the middle is not going to be sufficient to hold the petals together. So we'll come on to that again shortly. And this time I am curing one petal at a time. And again, I will do 2 layers of resin in each petal. Okay, jumping ahead to where the basics of the flowers are made. Next, we are going to jump to a section of the project where I had to figure it out for myself. So here's the reference photo again, and these bits in between are what we are going to make next. Again, this involved experimenting with the length of wire and how big to make the loops and the best tools to use to make the size of loops that I wanted. I don't like to waste wire, so I've still got it on the reel at the moment, and I'm just going to play about with making different sized loops on the end. What I have decided, or whether it's right or wrong, this is how I'm going to make it. Here's the photo again to show you what I mean. At the side of each coloured circle, there was an extra bit of wire, which is then turned into a loop to kind of make a jump ring. That will connect to a jump ring on the flowers to connect it all together. So I need to work out how long I need my wire to be to create a coloured dot, a little gap, then another coloured dot, and then the 2 loops on either side. And a little later you will see me make the half jump rings to attach to the flowers. Okay, so this piece of wire, I have bent it at 4 centimetres, which means that the whole piece is 8 centimetres because I've gone for the middle. Now I am using the smallest gauge on the bail making pliers, and I'm just making a rough loop. Now this one is looking too ribbon shaped. I need to make that circle more rounded. I've just cut out a bit of footage where I went off camera. So I've been manipulating it quite a bit, but then I've made the tail of the wire too kinky, and now trying to straighten the wire out, I'm pulling on the circle, so this was a bit of a nightmare. I'll jump ahead. Okay, I'm moving around too much and keep going out of frame. So here's a screenshot. There is how I have decided I am satisfied with it. Now I need to make a second loop to one side of that one and on the opposite side. So I've got my bail making pliers again. I want to use the smallest gauge again. So I'm gripping it with the second smallest gauge next to the previous circle, so that when I wrap it around the smallest gauge, it goes to the opposite side of the wire. Here's a freeze frame of that so that you can see that clearly as well. And now I just need to bend the other tail into shape. But the loop is too small, and so I'm trying to push the wire back to make the loop bigger, but then all that's doing is just distorting the shape of the tail. I want to resize that loop again, so I'm putting that bail making plier gauge back in, or trying to. Okay, let's jump ahead again. I've got some clear UV resin in a black nail polish bottle. I've wiped off any clear from the brush. I'm just borrowing the brush to use with the pink and the white. So I'll do the pink, wipe off the brush, do the white, wipe off the brush. Once it's clean again, put it back into the clear bottle. It takes a bit of practice to be able to fill a hole with resin without a backing on it, but it's not too difficult if it's a small one like this. Now I'm going to find some beads to use for the centres of the flowers. I will use the UV bonding kit again to secure them in place. I did have difficulty getting a couple of them to sit perfectly in the middle. Not quite sure what was wrong. Maybe there was a tiny bit of overpour on one petal. Certainly on that middle flower you can see there's some overpour on the top right. Okay, now I am going to actually shape the hoops at the end. So when I've done that earlier, that was just to gauge roughly how much wire I need. Now I'm actually coming to make the shapes. It's so fiddly, I go off camera a lot, so I am going to cut out all the footage except I'm going to find the one that gives you the best view. And I've slowed it down again so you can see better. I'm going to use the smallest setting to make the loop. So again, I've put the second smallest setting next to the coloured circle. Then when I wrap the wire around the smallest setting, that creates the loop in the correct direction. Then cut the excess wire. Then use my needle nose pliers to try and curl the end of the wire inside of the loop. At this point, I have decided that this bracelet will be for my daughter, so I have sized up her wrist and I only need 3 flowers for her, so I'm picking the best 3. Unlike the reference photo, one is pink flowers and one is white, I'm going to make this one be 2 pink flowers with 1 white in the middle, and then the connecting pieces will be white. It would look odd with 1 pink connector and 1 white connector. So because white is the less dominant colour with the flowers, I decided to use white connectors. And I've got them upside down at the moment. You'll see why shortly. And I'm just trying to find something that will hold them level. So I'm going to give them a back coat because, again, I am not confident with the security of them with just the UV bonding kit dotted in the middle. Some of the coloured resin may have overpoured onto the next petal, so it may have crossed the wire barrier between petals, but I just want to be absolutely certain. So I'm just using some clear hard type UV resin. Now I am making my own half jump rings. I could have just cut some jump rings in half, but they may have been too thick. I want these to be with the same wire, the same thickness of wire as the flowers. So I'm using the spare lengths of wire from my unused connectors. Now, why not save the unused connectors, you might ask? Because I've got spare flowers. I've got another bracelet half made. However, I wasn't happy with this connector. The 2 coloured circles were right next to each other and it was an odd one out and just don't look right anyway. So I'm using the spare wire from that one. And I'm using my UV bonding kit again, and I will stick these half jump rings, 2 to each petal, 1 on the end of 1 petal and 1 in the space between 2 petals on the opposite side. Just checking each one after I've done it, because I've dipped the half jump ring in resin, but then getting it into position and it sliding about a bit, I wanted to make sure that they were all secure. And now I've found my common sense and got myself some blue tack. I'm going to give them another top coat to not only make sure those jump rings are secure, extra secure, but also to smooth out if there are any rough edges from those jump ring edges. I don't know if it's necessary to do a full top coat or whether I could have just gone over the edges of the jump ring cuts. Surprisingly enough, we're now nearing the end. Surprising to me because I expected this video to be nearer an hour with me keeping so much detailed footage in. All that's left to do is to attach the connectors, put the final clasp on and give you the glamour shots. Please stay till the end for the glamour shots. I know you can pretty much see the project. And as I'm putting the connectors on, you'll see the project pretty much finished anyway, but please do hold for the glamour shots. I'd like to thank my subscribers once again. I really appreciate you, and ask again to those of you who are not subscribed, please consider doing so. Please let me know that you like this style of video by way of subscribing, liking and commenting. Don't forget to let me know what you think about the idea with the lives. And can I also remind you that I have a jewellery collaboration playlist, which I will link possibly as an end screen, but also in the description. This is a collaboration where you can take part even if you don't do YouTube. Please check out my announcement video to hear the explanation of how you can join in. So that playlist is for multiple creators as well as non-YouTubers. But I also have my own playlist of my own videos, my videos only, called Jewellery, Shakers and Keychains. So if you're liking the type of work I'm doing, check that one out as well.
In a quiet room, late night glow, mixing dreams with resin slow. Some ideas I already know, some scare me half to death, but I still go. Epoxy waves and UV light, trying to get it wrong to get it right. Hands not perfect, that's okay. Every mark is part of the way. I step outside, would feel safe and known. Build something beautiful on my own. If it breaks, I'll show you why. If it works, we'll both fly. I make it with heart, every part. Loving the mess, loving the art. If I say I should have, you'll understand.
And I'm just doing a final top coat on the fronts. Because of all the handling, I've dulled them down a bit, so just shining them back up a bit, and also just dome them a tiny bit as well. I'm still only using clear hard type. I'm not using high viscosity because I don't want to dome them too high.
Some days smooth, some days rough, some days yeah, some days that's enough. But every pour, every try has a reason, has a why. If I find the way it's meant to be, I'll teach you step by step with me. If I don't, at least you'll know what not to do when you go.
Thank you so much for watching. Have a good week, and I hope to see you again next week. Bye bye.
Mistakes can still be teachers, friend. No gatekeeping, no disguise. Just honest craft before your eyes. I make it with the heart, every part. Loving the mess, loving the art. If I say I should have, you'll understand. If I can't fix it, you still learn from my hands. Made with the heart from the start. This is creating with a heart.